Oh. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. There we go. I'm Marcus Liefert, Reverend Marcus Liefert, and I'm so glad to be with you this beautiful Sunday morning with clearing skies. If you're visiting with us for the first time, I want to extend a special welcome. No matter who you are or how you make your living, no matter whom you love or how you experience the sacred, we hope that you'll feel welcome in the fullness of who you are with us today. If you have something heavy on your heart or something joyful to celebrate that you'd like the whole congregation to know about, I invite you to share it in our memory book at the back of the sanctuary, and they'll be read aloud as part of the service. We've been on a tour this month of our theological house. We make a lot of noise as Unitarian Universalists about each of us finding our own way, coming to our own beliefs, which is true, but it's also true that we inherit a theological house built by those who've come before us. And so we've explored the walls being what makes a church and why do we have a spiritual community. We've explored the doorways, questions of beginnings and endings, and today we'll move to explore the roof. What is it that shelters us? What is it that gets us through the hard night when we're under the weight of the world? What is it that we place our faith in? This is soteriology. Once again, welcome. So glad you are here. Will you rise in body or in spirit? And we'll sing together. The words will be on the screen. I know I can. It's 10:15 in the Teal hymnal.
I'm Sandy Portillo-Robbins, and I'll be your worship associate for today. As we light our chalice to begin our service, we remind ourselves that our church occupies land in Huchiyun, the unceded territory of the Tuchenyo-speaking Ohlone people. May we have the humility and courage to do our part to restore what has been broken, and the wisdom to live into a new solidarity with indigenous communities and the earth. Let us kindle our chalice flame with these words by Reinhold Niebuhr. Nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime. Therefore, we are saved by hope. Nothing true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we are saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as from our own. Therefore, we are saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. Would you join me in saying our covenant? Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
We're glad that you came. If you come next Sunday, we'll tell you the same.
Adeline Lemieux, who you just heard as part of our youth and children's choir, is going to read a story. So if you would like to see the pictures, if you are a kid, come on up. If you're anybody of any age and you want to see some pictures while Adeline shares a story, come on up and join us up here on the chancel before children will be welcomed out.
That looks good, yeah. Okay, the book that I'll be reading for Time of All Ages is Leaves by David Ezra Stein. It was his first year. Everything was going well until the first leaf fell. "Are you okay?" he wondered. Then a red one fell, a yellow one fell. All over his island, the leaves were falling. He tried to catch them and put them back on, but it was not the same. He sat beneath a tree and watched them go all around. But he grew sleepy, and so he found a hole and filled it with leaves. and went to sleep, just as the wind began to blow. Winter came. He slept snug in the ground while the snow piled thick. In the spring, with wide eyes, he woke. He felt the sun and saw the little buds on the bare arms of the trees and the tiny leaves that had began to unfold. "Welcome," he cried. And he thought the leaves welcomed him.
If you are feeling welcomed by leaves or by the turning into fall, whatever you are feeling welcomed by, let's all follow our youth and children's choir's lead in singing the children to their classes. Will you welcome them out?
Okay.
YCC is going to start us with our favorite goodbye song, Peace Friends Until We Meet Again, also known as Shalom Chaverim. Ready, guys? Shalom Chaverim,
Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom, Lehitraot, Lehitraot, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Haverim, Shalom. Okay, good job, you guys. Shalom, Shalom. Thank you, Brian. Lehitraot, Lehitraot. Shalom, 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 harim, shalom, harim, shalom, shalom, lehitraot, lehitraot, shalom, shalom, yeah. Wait until Sandy goes. We mixed up the order. Do I need to transition? No.
So we started coming to UCD in 2008 when we moved to El Cerrito. And between chalice circles, RE, and Sunday sermons, it quickly became our spiritual home. We moved here from Martinez to be closer to the girls' school. Their school was a place I loved, a home of a different kind, but a home. I'd drop them off and spend a good portion of my morning there, talking with other parents, taking parent classes, craft making, and volunteering my time. They started there in kindergarten, and while school wasn't perfect, what is? It was perfect for us. As they got to the grades, I knew I wanted to be a teacher there, so I got my certification to be able to do that. I always felt that the school would do what was best for the students and the teachers. I thought they were above politics and pettiness. I thought they would act with integrity. Then my girls reached middle school, and I did get a job there as the middle school math teacher. A conflict rose up between the admin and one of my daughter's teachers, but I thought, surely they will work this out and they will do the right thing. As the conflict escalated, I realized I could not count on this. And along with my husband, we tried to imagine the worst case scenario. What would we do if they fired our teacher? Well, the worst thing happened. And as I felt so strongly that what they did was wrong, I resigned. I had never ever done anything like that, leaving before the end of the school year, no notice, just walking away. Walking away from a place I thought was safe, a place I thought was home. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. And as I drove away from the school, mid-morning, I needed to turn to someone. I needed a safe place. Richard, my husband, was at work, so there was nobody at home. I was on my own. I turned to the one place I knew I would be listened to, the place I felt safe. I drove straight to UUCB and talked and cried with Marin, the family minister at that time. She knew just what to say and helped me feel like I did what I felt I had to do. And it was okay. It would be okay. UUCB was and continues to be my safe place, my home.
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be joy somewhere.
I feel like singing, singing morning. I feel like singing, singing all day. My heart is filled with gladness, and my soul is on its way. I feel like singing, singing in the morning.
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be joy somewhere. I feel like laughing, laughing in the morning. I feel like laughing, laughing all day. I see all those around me, and I feel we're just the same. I feel like laughing, laughing in the morning.
I feel like shouting, shouting in the morning. I feel like shouting, shouting all the day. I won't be much more quiet, 'cause I got something to say. I feel like shouting, shouting in the morning. I feel like praising, praising in the morning. I feel like praising, praising all the day. I feel I'm moving through me, and I want to get carried away. I feel like praising, praising in the morning. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. Where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that
Amen. Would you take a moment to rest a little more comfortably in your seat? To feel your connection down to this good earth. Your breath moving in and out. Connecting you with all that is, all that has been, all that will be. A few words from Reverend Burton Carley. I do not know if the seasons remember their history, or if the days and nights by which we count time remember their own passing. I do not know if the oak tree remembers its planting, or if the pine remembers its slow climb toward sun and stars. I do not know if the squirrel remembers last fall's gathering, or if the blue jay remembers the meaning of snow. I do not know if the air remembers September, or if the night remembers the moon. I do not know if the earth remembers the flowers from last spring, or if the evergreen remembers that it shall stay so. Perhaps that is the reason for our births, to be the memory for creation. Perhaps salvation is something very different than anyone ever expected. Perhaps salvation is something very different than anyone ever expected. Perhaps this will be the only question we will have to answer. What can you tell me about September? O God of turning seasons, of remembering, when the world is too much with us, when eyes dry in the haze and throats sting, when memories of an orange sky rise and wise and tender hearts still recoil, still remain sundered by the unbelievable brokenness of it all. Hold us in the shelter of another memory, of a child's upward gaze into an old oak's leaves, shiny and sharp. Remind us we are sheltered by a great story tree whose leaves and branches, trunk and roots have arrived from an ancient wisdom we receive as a gift freely offered. Remember, O mystery, remember in us that September is just another name for bearing witness. Another moment to savor the shelter of creation's faithful canopy. May we dwell in that shelter, in stillness, in silence, together. Each week, in this community of care and witness, we hold one another through the seasons of our lives and lift up some of those joys and sorrows among us. Today, with someone we reach out to hold in our thoughts as Cindy moves through towards her exit from this lifetime. May we all be held in love and support. And as joy and woe are woven fine, we have celebrations to lift up this morning as well. A happy 19th wedding anniversary to my favorite person, Greg. Love, Alice. Wishing everyone finds this completion. And we celebrate birthdays with Rod Lowe. We celebrate the birthday of Susan Langford and Phyllis. A very happy birthday on Tuesday, and Phoebe Sorgan on Wednesday. For these joys and sorrows that have been named, for all that yet remains in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May each of us know that what we bring here is held in the loving embrace of this community. And by that deeper, mysterious love, beyond all naming, that love that cannot, that will not let us go. May it be so. And amen. Well, you may remain seated as we join in singing together, Over My Head. The words are on the screen, or it's 30 in that gray hymnal.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I find myself looking up for something all the time. And I don't know if it's God or something else, but something, just something to help me get through. I remember a moment about a decade ago, and I was talking with my spiritual director, and she had invited me to do some kind of reflecting on what I was feeling in my body, and you know how those spiritual directors are. Maybe you don't, but you know, one of those people you talk to gets you to look inside, and I was feeling really in a lot of pain from my session with my personal trainer I was working with the day before, and I knew that he had overdone it, and I was really struggling to figure out how to work with this guy because he was a young guy. I wanted to measure up, and he was kind of putting the pressure on. But so I was talking to my spiritual director about how to work with my personal trainer, and then I realized that I was paying one person to talk to me about how to talk to another person. I was paying all to do something that I already knew I needed to do. Meanwhile, she was giving me, good advice about, well, you can just tell him you only do half of the reps that he says you should do. Boy, this trying to live lives of integrity, joy, and service, they can get expensive, can't it? But there's this desperation to it. I remember in that conversation, both those people I was working with, this desperate need, this looking up. There must be something somewhere. It makes me think of the way that the theologian Marcus Borg talks about the word for faith. He says that the Hebrew word for faith in the Old Testament is emunah. Emunah. And he says what makes the word interesting is that it's the sound a baby donkey makes when it's crying for its mother. Emunah. I think he says to appreciate that, you have to say emunah so that it sounds like that. If you want to hear the meaning of emunah, you have to say it like it's braying. I sometimes think to myself, he says, if you say it soft, it's almost like braying, like praying. The point that faith in the Hebrew Bible is like a baby donkey calling out or crying for its mother. So there's something kind of wonderful about that. There's an element, I don't know if you want to say desperation in it or not, but there's certainly an element of confidence also that the cry will be heard. An element of perhaps desperation and also of confidence that the cry will be heard. I don't think baby donkeys are the only babies who make that kind of cry. Emunah. It was what I was thinking about a few years ago, a moment that I'm sure most of you remember when a young woman named Greta Thunberg spoke to the whole world. At 16 years old, she said, "This is all wrong," to the gathered luminaries, leaders from around the world. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. I shouldn't be here, yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you, she said. You've stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. And yet, I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? Emunah. To imagine a hopeful future, to seek some kind of salvation. in the face of what is unquestionably reasonable despair is an act of faith. And when we think about it this way, faith, it's not about belief. It's not about believing that something that I'm going to do is what makes the difference. It's about a choice. It's not about trying to hold on to certainty in the face of doubt, but rather it's a calling out in that confident desperation, calling out with our lives in hope in the face of despair. This idea that faith is a choice, it's actually the conclusion I took from reading that philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, who was in that milieu of 19th century German liberal theological thought. When he was wrestling with questions of ultimate truth as part of that philosophical, theological movement, he was trying to identify what are the limits of reason, of coming to a rational belief to act upon. And basically the conclusion I think he came to is you can't use reason. For him, he was all in relationship to the Christian story. You can't use reason to disprove the Christian story. And I have to tell you, when I read him, being raised UU among good, hard-thinking, rationalist, humanist types, his conclusion did not sit well with me. So much so that my professor knew that something must have upset me to get my thinking out of whack when I turned in my paper, and he was not pleased with it. You might disbelieve the stories of miracles, of certain events having happened based on reason, he argues. And I've come to agree, though, that you can't, however, whether you reject the idea that God exists and incarnated God's self in Jesus to show love and open a way, you can't make that call. It's not a rationalizing intellect that's given you that reasonable conclusion, but rather a choice. A choice not to believe. For Kierkegaard, believing or disbelieving in the Christian God, the story of Christ, it's a choice, a leap of faith, either way. And so what I took away, and you know, you can read the pages and pages of ink spilled on this question, but I think this is an important way of seeing the question. We all make choices about where to place our faith every day. We can't help it. The way Emerson put it was, a person will worship something, have no doubt about that. And what we worship, we become. So these are subtle choices, not often made in the conscious mind, but instinctual, rooted in the beliefs and narratives that we hold about the world. Choices about where to put our faith. And it's true that where we place our faith matters. So faith, it's not an articulation of belief, it's about where we put our attention, with the intentions we hold, about the choices that we make about where to put our bodies, what to do with them. It's Yom Kippur now, this second holiday in the Jewish high holy days. And so the practice of atonement is on my mind, of carefully sifting through a difficult situation, perhaps the whole past year, to find what piece of it is mine. And I think that this practice, this call, this religious call to once and again, every year, look back, examine our lives, it's a practice rooted in that unreasonable faith that our lives and our choices matter. Choosing to put faith in that. Yom Kippur, it's to seek forgiveness by seeking a shelter in our own limitation, to acknowledge that we did not build our own roof, that we mess up over and over, and that because it matters, because we hold faith that our choices, the impact of our action matters, we must seek shelter under a roof we did not build. I found that the more money I have, the more money I spend trying to find in desperate plea that thing that will save my life. On coaches and therapists, on my yoga membership. I never thought I was not going to be a yoga person. My wife helped me understand now that I didn't have to be a yoga person. I could just be a person who goes to yoga. But I did. I started going to yoga, and I've kept going. I go to my weekly yoga class just once a week. I don't do yoga any other time. But I go faithfully to my weekly yoga class. And I don't know exactly why. I know I need something there. I know I've got body problems and aches and pains, and I want to live a long and robust life. And I'm not sure that my weekly yoga class is going to get me there. But I seem to be placing my faith there nonetheless. When I would gather sometimes new members of a congregation for a class we'd call Starting Point, I would ask them to please, let's go on a spectrum about beliefs, and we'd talk about different ideas that they might have, religious ideas or backgrounds, to go to one side of the room for another. And one of them would always be, go to this side of the room if you have been saved, and this side of the room if that idea does not speak to you. And as you might imagine, among Unitarian Universalists, no one cared for the idea of having been saved. None of us here needs saving, right? It's that old quip, actually, that the Universalists, the Universalist side, they believed that God was too good to damn anyone to hell, while the Unitarian side believed that they were too good to be damned to hell. Maybe there's a reason we kept Unitarian first. It was actually, there's a long history there. There was a class question, but more to come about that. No matter how privileged we might be, no matter what circumstances life has given us to try and use money or whatever means to save ourselves, I do think every one of us needs saving over and over again, not in some existential for all time, in some other realm beyond this one, but here and now, day to day. What is saving your life? With the impossibility of being human, with the body problems or the relationship problems or the money problems or the family problems or the feeling problems, this being human, we find problems to struggle with. And so what are you saved by? May you be saved by a yoga class or a walk in the woods, by a cup of tea or a phone call with a friend, by a neighbor's garden, by the welcome of leaves. May you be saved by ripe tomatoes and fresh basil. May you be saved by cultivating milkweed for monarchs or bronze-leafed fennel for swallowtails. May you be saved by watching persimmons ripen on the tree, by the sounds of children playing or the first sweet note of a favorite album. May we be saved by a glimpse of the squirrel preparing for winter, by the steadfast evergreen, by the bright blue feathers of the jay arresting your attention from its habits of worry. Maybe saved by your public library, bringing a book to the branch closest to your home, by the smile shared by a clerk at the grocery store, by a hand reaching out to hold yours, even for a few seconds, even if it's the only hand you will hold this week, however heavy the burden you carry, however ordinary the problems you face, whatever you need to be saved from, the world reaches out to you. Have faith. Cry back in desperation and with hope. Emunah. May it be so, and amen.
We invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. Instead of passing the plate, you can give electronically by scanning the QR code on the back of your badge, or you can put cash or check donation into the donation envelope that you'll find in the back of the pew in front of you. Write your name on it and mark offering plate or pledge, and then put it into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium as you leave the service. Each week, half of the offering plate is shared with the nonprofit Good Neighbor organization recommended by our wonderful Social Justice Council. Thank you so much for practicing generosity with UUCB and with our good neighbors. The good neighbor for this month is the East Bay Center for the Blind. The East Bay Center for the Blind offers services and social activities to a diverse group of people who are blind or low vision, many of whom are not assisted but by other agencies. They give particular attention to individual needs and circumstances. Thank you.
Place, I feel at ease. Wallpaper peeling, wallpaper peeling, paint wearing thin. Here's where I end and begin. I don't need a roof to say I'm covered. I don't need a roof to know I'm home. there could be a single shingle dangling overhead. I don't need a roof to make my bed. Close your eyes, I'm here beside you. No goodbyes needed today. Hear what the rain says, know what it knows. After the rain, something grows. I don't need a roof to say I love you. I don't need a roof to call you mine. I don't need adventure in some faraway frontier. I don't need a roof to feel you near. All I need is you and you forever. All I feel is true and absolute. I don't need a legal deed to help me play my part. I don't need a roof to hold my heart. Stay with me. Stay with me.
That was beautiful. Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create a loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
I want to share a few things happening in the life of our community. You can always find out what's going on by visiting our website and checking the news section. A few things to lift up this morning. One is that this is your chance to join a chalice circle, and if you are in need of a group to help save your life, I can't recommend a chalice circle more highly. These are groups where people share a little more in depth than you can in coffee hour, getting to listen deeply to one another. So act fast. I hear there's just a few spots left. They'll begin in the first weeks of October. After the service today, you can look for the Chalice Circle information table, where I know Lenore and Cynthia are here to help you find a circle for you. Coming up next month, there's the Song of the Universal concert, which should be beautiful. I've been hearing about it, and so I listened to that piece of music. It's absolutely gorgeous. Sunday after the service, October 8th, in a couple of weeks. Please be there if you can. And lastly, if you have been wondering if this community might be a spiritual home for you, and you'd like to learn more about what it means to become a member here, learn a little bit about Unitarian Universalist history, I invite you to join us in the fireside room after the service today. Reverend Jay Atkinson, a retired minister who's one of our members, will share some history. Victoria and Lonnie will be there to help you understand what it means to become a member, and I look forward to getting to know you there. Will you all rise once again, in body or in spirit, and join in singing one of the great soteriological hymns of American hymnody, Amazing Grace. Will you reach out a hand or touch an elbow or reach out to the great beyond to feel ourselves connected with one another, with this world, with that holy mystery that is there for us whenever we might cry out in desperation, but also with confidence we will be heard. Emunah, have faith. Emunah. Go in peace. Go with love.